Hey, welcome into this week in Indiana football, Nebraska week, the rivalry that nobody asked for, the artificial rivalry that nobody asked for. This podcast obviously brought to you by Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Listen Monday through Friday on YouTube and or WREF in Evansville, 97.7 or WBRO 89.9 in Marengo. Joining me as always, Dustin Schutte from Outsider.com, the former walk-on turned scholarship superstar Mitchell Page in the building, no longer stuck in traffic, in case you were still wondering. And returning after a little bit of a hiatus last week, Joe, the law firm Lincoln. The whole gang's back this week, guys. Following, for the first time this year, an Indiana loss on the road at the hands of the Cincinnati Bearcats. It was extremely ugly, at least through two quarters, 38-10 at halftime. Indiana came out and nearly, not quite, they made a couple of mistakes toward the very end that prevented this, but nearly blanked Cincinnati in the second half in their efforts to make a comeback. They had a chance late in the fourth quarter to make it a 7-point game. Some crucial mistakes didn't allow that to happen, obviously, and Cincinnati ended up coming away with a 21-point victory, covering the spread that I said made Indiana look disrespectful last week. So I'll go ahead and eat crow on that, Dustin. But I guess we'll go ahead and open up the floor. What are some thoughts on this first loss that Indiana took against Cincinnati?
I want to go last because I feel like my thoughts are going to be a little bit different than everybody else's. So somebody else can go ahead
Mitchell
first.
Should go first. I think Mitchell needs to go first.
I'm going to start from a place of positivity. I thought our defensive line and linebackers played fantastic. Cincinnati's been pretty good, and they're physical up front, and they ran the ball on Arkansas and were able to do some things in an SEC building in Indiana. I made them look like they were inept beginners. I was really, really positive. Gave up some big plays in the pass game again. I think that receiver, I can't remember what his name is, but I think he's a really good player. So, yeah, they're going to make plays too. They're on scholarship. I thought the defense was a lot better. Then you just transition. I mean, the offense was – it really just starts up front. It gets you behind chains, running the ball on first down with no real prayer of even getting back to the line of scrimmage at times, it felt like. Then all of a sudden you're behind chains and you put your defense in not the best positions. And then you let the game get away from you a little bit with a couple quick mistakes, and that was it. That was really the game. So really a tale of two sides of the ball. It seems like that's kind of the way it's been for the past 2 years. I think the defense is starting to get better. Really, really needs some improvement rapidly on the offensive line.
Dustin wanted to go last, so we're going to hand it over to the law firm this time.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said right there. I'm going to go ahead and touch on something that I've harped on for the last 2 or 3. Even though I wasn't here last week, the first 2 weeks that I've been on here, it's just been the slow start and the big play is what's killed Indiana, and it came back to bite them unbelievably against Cincinnati. It reared its head, and it was undeniable. So I think it's something that needs to be addressed more thoroughly by Tom Allen and the rest of his staff because obviously no changes were made to adjust to it. You got to hand it to Cincinnati. Like Mitchell already said, they have players on scholarship that are really, really talented. Luke Fickell is one of the best head coaches in college football, in my opinion. So he coached those guys up to be ready for the challenge, and they came out with more fire. And I think if Indiana wants to stay in the running in any of these Big Ten games, the start has to be everything. It infuriates me that we came out and put up the score that we did in the first half because that's not going to get it done. And it can improve is the good news. You just have to change your approach a little bit. But until that happens, I think this team is going to continue to struggle. So I think if you were going to focus on one thing this week in practice to get ready for a Nebraska team in Lincoln, it would be that.
So are you going, John, or do you want me to jump in here?
No, you go, Dustin. You're good.
Okay. So I agree with both Mitchell and Joe. The offensive line is a big problem. The slow starts are a big problem. What I've been harping on all this week and in previous weeks and talking about is I think actually, despite the offensive line playing poorly, despite the poor starts, they've actually done enough to be 4-0 right now. The defensive backs, the secondary, is not good. And you have an All-American back there. You've got a lot of experience with Tywan Mullen, Davon Matthews, Jalen Williams. You've got some really experienced, really talented guys that were getting beat by wide receivers. I'm not going to say that. Obviously, Cincinnati's talented. They went to the college football playoff last year. They went into Arkansas and gave them a fight. But this was supposed to be the strength of your defense, and it looked like child's play out there. So I think coming into the season, we knew the offensive line wasn't going to be good. I don't think we thought it was going to be this bad. I think it looks worse than it was last year. So that's obviously a problem. But they did score 24 points. They have shown at times with their back up against the wall, they have answered the bell. Trailing Idaho, they came out and played well in the second half. They needed a big drive against Illinois. They got that done. And then who was the other? What was the other game they just played? WKU. Yeah, they made some big plays when they needed to. This defense is, to me, the secondary is not playing well at all, and that's what you got to fix, because that's what I thought was going to be the strength of this team. And if it's not, and you can't stop the pass, there are a lot of Big Ten East teams, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, that can throw the ball. Maryland, that have a lot of really good receivers and can throw the ball really well. So you might find yourself getting beat 45-24 quite a bit if you don't fix that.
One thing I'm worried about. Go ahead, Mitch.
Would you argue that that's the most disappointing position on the field for the Hoosiers, regardless? I don't even think it's close relative to the expectations. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the offensive line is the worst position group, but the defensive backs are the most disappointing, because I thought they would light it up this year.
Yeah, I mean, you got wannabe kind of All-Americans, guys that have made a bunch of plays for you, and there's just a lot of blown coverage, and sometimes they look lost, for lack of a better word, just in the wrong position. If you're getting beat on 50-50 balls and they're just going up and getting it, but you're right there, okay, you can coach that a little bit. You're right there, but I think it was their first touchdown. The guy just ran a post, and Tywan Mullen broke on a comeback. And it wasn't like he double moved. I mean, it was just one stick and go. That's a play that just sticks out in my head. I think it was their first touchdown. Is really head scratching. It's supposed to be your guy. They've put him by himself at times and just said, hey, you're on an island. We're going to play defense over here. And you just can't have your guy getting beat like that. That makes it an uphill battle for sure.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to ask just real quick, because Mitchell's going to have way more insight on this than I would.
Yeah.
When Tom Allen said we had guys getting beat on double moves, I didn't think it was a lot of double moves. I thought it was pretty simplistic routes they were just getting beat on. I mean, maybe not the whole game, because there were some double moves in there, but at the same time, there were some times I was like, that he just got beat. Like, there was nothing sophisticated about that route running. There was no change of pattern. There was nothing that should catch those type of players with that kind of experience off guard. I mean, what was your thought on that?
Yeah, the play I go back to is that same post. It was literally a one-stick post. There was no lean, no nod. He didn't even use his eyes. He ran straight vertical, put his foot in the ground, and ran to the goalpost. It's
right.
I think the first route you learn as a middle schooler. So to say that one was a double move, I would have hesitation. Maybe there was other ones that we just didn't see on the TV copy, but it certainly didn't feel like they were getting beat by 30 yards on double moves, which is how much space some of these guys had.
I'm trying to remember my train of thought.
We went off the rails.
I have two thoughts, and the one that I want to talk about left me. So I'll go ahead and say the other one. Watching this game specifically in the first half, This was the first time, at least since Tom Allen has been in charge of the defense in some capacity, I guess since he's been on staff, where I felt like it was a pre-Tom Allen style of defense where it didn't matter what Indiana was going to do or what Cincinnati was going to do, on offense. They were going to find a way to get somebody open and get 40 or 50 yards quickly. It reminded me of when, and nothing against the Kevin Wilson era, because those teams could put up lots of points, but it was the exact opposite during that time period. You knew your offense was going to keep you in the game. You knew you had to score because there was a really good chance that whoever, doesn't matter who the D coordinator was at the time, there was a good chance that no matter if Indiana scored on that drive or not, that the following drive, whether it was Ohio State, Michigan, Northwestern, didn't matter. They were going to come down and do the same thing, score on you if it was a close game. That's the vulnerability that I feel like this defense was at in that first half, that they rectified in the second. That's another example in this game. We mentioned in the first 3 games, they found ways to turn things around. They were able to find a way to turn around things in this second half. It was just obviously way too little too late. You're down 28 points. In Cincinnati, part of that was them probably letting off the gas. You're up 4 touchdowns. Obviously they didn't need to score anymore to win, and they only scored 1 more garbage time touchdown. You weren't going to get their 100% best effort at the beginning of the third quarter. And it did help for Indiana to go ahead and snag that momentum early whenever they intercepted the ball on Cincinnati's first drive of the third quarter. That obviously was a great start. You can't deny the fact that that was maximum effort on Indiana's side, but maybe a little laxness on Cincinnati's end. But I guess that's the long-winded way of saying, why can't they put together a full game? We've been talking about it all season so far.
It was kind of interesting the way that all of this happened, whether it was double moves or blown coverages or whatever it was. I'd be curious what the stats were, how many drives Cincinnati had that touchdown drives versus other drives didn't matter that were longer than like 5 plays. I feel like if Indiana didn't give up a touchdown in the first 2 plays, it was probably going to be a 3-and-out, and they were going to punt. It was just one of the weirdest games on defense where it never really felt like Cincinnati had any life until there was just a massive hole. And it kind of came nowhere. Like Indiana was in your face, and then, boom, blow everything open. There's just an interesting
Another thing
game.
I noticed, and this may have happened prior to this game, and it may happen in the future, but I feel like Indiana's defense, it tries so hard to go for the 3-and-out that if they once they give up that first down, it's like the floodgates are open for whoever they're playing against. Because they did in the second half, they made Cincinnati go 3-and-out a lot. But anytime that they got 1 first down, it's like they almost got down they didn't score in the second half except for once, obviously, but they were able to, make a whole lot more progress.
Yeah, definitely. Just an interesting it was like this sucked the life out of you kind of game. It never, other than 7 minutes maybe, end of the second quarter, where Cincinnati blew the top off, it never felt like Indiana was getting killed. I mean, we didn't block a soul, but they also couldn't block us. It felt like it was just a back and forth kind of fist fight apart from a couple big plays and the sack fumble, which I honestly didn't totally disagree with. Got a great kicker, go try to get him in range. Sometimes you take those risks and it doesn't happen, but this was an interesting afternoon, kind of annoying afternoon, to be honest.
Any other thoughts on the Cincinnati game before we, dive into our next opponent?
Nope.
One thing I just want to
go ahead, Joe.
I don't think anybody on that given day could cover Tyler Scott. I don't think a lot of teams in his own conference, maybe even in the country, he looked insane. I've never even heard of the guy. Was he a big receiver? I know it was pretty much Alec Pierce last year. But I think he had some decent stats. I can't remember, but no, I mean, he only had 30 receptions a year ago, so definitely a guy to look out for. But the Bryant Scott connection, I guess it'll be there for a long time because he looked unbelievable on Saturday. So just look out for that kid in the draft boards. Maybe not this year, maybe the next year though.
Do some fantasy college football. Is that even a thing? I don't think it is it?
It used
to be. It used to be.
I would have people tweeting at me when I would only have like 45 yards or something. I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, man, you stink. I didn't even know what they were talking about. I'm like, I know, but just tell me why.
I would like to go back in time because my brother and I used to do that. And I did usually pick up guys from Indiana. I wonder if I ever had Mitchell Page on my team because they was averaging like 50 points a game. But you'd also go and you'd get like the running back from Boise State because you knew he'd run for 250 because they're playing New Mexico State or whatever. It used to be a lot of fun, but they did away with that.
I got to ask you something, Mitchell, and then if you don't have an answer to this, you don't have to, but I'm curious. What is the rudest thing that anyone ever tweeted at you while you played for Indiana?
Oh, man. Well, people like to remember, and maybe it's just I like to remember or cry about, 4th and goal against Michigan in double overtime.
Oh, yeah. Jordan Howard, you ran the ball however many times in a row?
Yeah, I was there. So that play still haunts my dreams. But, yeah, there were some not nice things said to me after that. That was a tough evening and week. I'll tell you guys, this is actually a pretty funny story. I'll be really quick with it. But when I was in Germany, we had taken a trip to I don't remember exactly where it was. Maybe I think we were in Amsterdam or something, and we were walking to a bar, and there was a group randomly. Didn't know these people. They were outside of the bar, and one of the guys had on an Indiana shirt. And one of my favorite things to do in public, like no one ever recognizes my face really, mostly because I'm like 3 feet tall. So I'll go up and ask them if they went to like football games, ask their favorite. I don't ever say like, oh, well, I played or anything. I'm just curious if they went there, how many IU games they went to. So I see this kid with his Indiana shirt, and I just strike up a conversation. He says he only went to one game, and I know immediately which game it is. So we start talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I think it went to double overtime, and we were running the ball really well. We were playing Michigan. I said, oh, no way. I was at that game too. He goes, yeah, we were giving it to the running back, and then on the last play of the game, we threw it to the littlest guy on the field. I was like, man, I got to tell you, I flew 3,000 miles away, and I can't get away from that game. That was me. And he's like, no way.
Oh, you did tell him, okay.
I did. Hilarious. I had to, because he actually said it a little meaner than the way I said it. There were some curse words involved. So he was mad. I ruined his only game that he ever went to. So I would say that after that game is when some of the meanest stuff that was said to me. But for the most part, fans were great. There was a lot of positivity. We scored a bunch of points, so that made it easier. There was a lot of stuff to talk about on offense.
I'll tell you one thing. I think you played on one of these teams, or this team in particular. It was against Minnesota at home. The backwards pass.
That happened right in front of my face. I hadn't played. I wasn't in the offensive huddle. I was the biggest flag waver or towel waver we had ever seen. That was my whole job. Wave the towels, drink the Gatorade. So I'm like, man, we're going to a bowl game. This is going to be sick. I don't hear what the play call is. And I can't remember for who the quarterback was. It was either Cam Kaufman or Nate Sudfeld. And it's right down the line from me. I can just see it's a backwards pass. And Tevin doesn't catch it and starts running back, looking at the sideline. It felt like it happened in slow motion. All of our guys just went back to get the next play, and their whole team jumped on the ball, and you couldn't even explain what was happening. It was unbelievable. It was disastrous. It's one of the craziest plays of my career.
I remember too. Kevin
2
Wilson
yards
took his headset, slammed it right on the ground as it happened too. If you go back and watch replay of that.
Stunning.
Speaking of emotions, they're going to be pretty high this week when Indiana takes on Nebraska in Lincoln. Again, like I said in the intro, the artificial rivalry that nobody asked for, not even Indiana fans, definitely not Nebraska fans. But 3 years ago, a rivalry started unintentionally when some sort of Big Ten meeting occurred where either the athletic director for Nebraska or Scott Frost made the comment that they don't want to play Ohio State and Michigan State every year. They want to be playing Indiana, Purdue, teams like that, right? Well, Fred Glass overheard that conversation, fed that over to Tom Allen and the football team, and obviously the rest is history. Indiana goes into Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, the fake Memorial Stadium, if you will. And I shouldn't say that. They obviously sell out their stadium every year, every game, and Indiana doesn't do that.
Fake Memorial Stadium. The rivalry has been created.
Okay, so there you go.
The rivalry.
You go into Lincoln. Whop Fillier brings this Chucky doll with him and says something along the lines like, we're going to bring out the chaos or something. That's butchering it at best, but
I hope he didn't
Indiana
say
goes out. What you say, Mitch?
I hope he didn't say it like that. That's not very intimidating.
Yeah, obviously. I've read and reread this earlier today. I don't remember what I read word for word. But
it's okay.
Something along those
I
lines.
think that's better.
Indiana wins this game 38-31. And I don't think it was necessarily the game that began the downfall of Scott Frost, but it was definitely something that ticked a lot of fans off, especially when you consider how all of the, once again, with Nebraska, non-football related things happen. Non-on-the-field stuff caused this to become what it has. And 3 years later, it's September 29th, 2 days before game day, unless you're listening to this, then it's yesterday. And a former Nebraska assistant, Rick Kinzanski, I believe is his name, something along those lines, was on a radio show this week and once again gives Indiana some bulletin board, locker room style material. I don't have the clip pulled up that we played on Indiana Sports Beat today, but it was something along the lines of Tom Allen's a clown. He just wants to run out of the tunnel. He's out there to just run out of the tunnel. That's all he's there for. He likes the attention. He's a rah-rah kind of guy. It's things that we already know. And I don't mean that as like a bad thing. But when you use those things as an insult to the other team, when you're already having your own issues, you've been dealing with off the field issues for as long as, I don't know, as long as I can remember Scott Frost being there. I mean, we have what we talked about earlier, and obviously Scott Frost is gone now. But throughout these years that he was there, at the beginning of the season, you had the vomit comment that made its rounds around media. And then, they lost to Northwestern, and a Northwestern coach had a response to that after the fact. But it seems like they can't – it doesn't matter if they're within the program now or were a part of the program at some other point. They find ways to give the other team extra motivation to beat them. And that is definitely the case once again with Indiana as they go and try to be 2 for 2 since Nebraska has been in the conference. So with that being said, again, I'm going to open the floor for opening thoughts on this Indiana-Nebraska game.
Bananas. Absolutely bananas. That this nobody that's not even with the program is going to come out and say some nonsense like that. I mean, you have no business saying, if I'm the head coach, especially as an interim guy, I'm finding that guy and you're never allowed in the stadium again. You're reeling already. You have no real prospects to win a game. Your team is not good. You don't need any. Indiana hasn't. They found ways to win, but they haven't been very good either. This is a game that you have a chance to win. To add some fuel to this fire is bananas. But I love it as an IU guy.
I'm along there. I'm along there with Mitchell because I think they had everything going for them. They had an extra week off. They are playing with nothing to lose, which I think is always, even though you make those changes, I think it's a dangerous sort of mentality. And then for somebody to say something that's obviously going to get back to Tom Allen and the team, to give them some sort of bulletin board material. And by the way, this game sets up, to me, as a typical Nebraska game in that Indiana is a terrible first half team, right? We've already acknowledged that. This, to me, like I could see this happening where Nebraska's up 21-3 at halftime. They're feeling really good about themselves. And then Indiana comes out and wins 28-24 with a strong second half performance because Nebraska loses another one possession game because why not? Like that's how I see this game unfolding. But I just don't understand, like, why, when you have been bad for now 5 years, at least 6 years at least, why do you even saying that? Like, who? I don't understand what you gained from that.
Who is this guy? He's not a part of the program.
He used to be a D-line coach.
He used to be. Okay. I used to play football for Indiana. Does that entitle me to say that I'm a player still? It is crazy. I know that doesn't really make sense, but it is crazy that this dude outside the program is going to go out and call a guy out by name. And Tom Allen is quirky. He's kind of corny. Some of his speeches, his rah-rah speeches are a little too rah-rah, whatever. He is. He's a little corny. But the players love him.
Right.
A lot of fans love him. He gets people to play hard. So when you go attack somebody like that and a team behind him that loves him like they do, I mean, you're stirring the pot for no reason. And the players had nothing to do with it. The coaches had nothing to do with it. Some third-party Jones.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's a lot to be said about this week. There's a lot going on. I think that obviously this is a game that Indiana's had circled on their schedule for a while because this is honestly a 3-1 start for Indiana. The way they've played, I think they'll take that at this point. I mean, maybe they could have lost 2 out of the 3 games that they've won. So this game is one that you can definitely win as well. It's obviously a hostile environment, but I want to go back to what Dustin said real quick because I think that Indiana, if there's ever going to be a game where you're going to get off to a fast start, this is the one that it needs to happen because imagine going into Memorial Stadium as a fan and you see IU get out to a 21-0 start. You know how fast you're going to turn on your team? You're already down in the dumps. I can see the boots just raining down, just like they're turning on them completely. So
especially you just got blown out by Oklahoma.
Yes.
That's true. That's true. So they're already used to seeing this. There's the higher urban shirts in the crowd too. Everything's kind of going that direction. So I mean, 2 good passes to Cam Camper, that could seal the deal in the first half. So I think if we could see them get out to a fast start, this game could be good. But at this point, I don't know that it's going to happen because if it doesn't happen against Western Kentucky or Idaho for that fact, I don't think it's going to happen against Nebraska and Lincoln.
If you're Indiana, I think you
hold on real quick. Did you see
what like 73-0 to FIU?
I don't care who it is. You beat a team 73-0, you got some mojo. I don't care if you're playing a D2 team. These are still guys that are fast and are coached, and you just go out and beat the brakes off them. That's another one that I will always say that was a fantastic win. So I'm not here for the Western Kentucky slow start slander.
Yes,
that's fair. I'll take that one on the chin. That's my bad. I forgot about what I was saying. I forgot about the 73 zip. That was a pounding.
73-0. It's crazy.
Here's the thing. Here's what Indiana, I think, absolutely needs to do, or it would be best case scenario. I think Indiana needs to want the ball first if they win the coin toss. And I think if you get the ball first, you're taking a shot downfield in the first play. Why not? If you do that and you score on the first play, and it can absolutely happen. I think honestly, and we'll get into this in a little bit. I think the 4 typical scenarios, I think every single one of these is possible in a game. I think Indiana can get blown out. I think Nebraska can get blown out. And I think either team can win a close one. Yeah. I think any of that is 100% possible in this game. That's how chaotic both of these teams are and how unpredictable anything that can happen in this rivalry that we have created. It's obviously, if you're a non-Indiana fan, honestly, if you're a Nebraska fan, you know this is not a rivalry. But Indiana fans, at least I feel like, love thinking. Honestly, I'm probably just speaking for myself, but I like to pretend that other Indiana
somebody thinks it's a rivalry.
I love the prospect of this organic rivalry that has formed between Indiana and Nebraska through these silly things that have happened off the field.
I 100% agree.
So this is
all that, man. I'm for it.
This is why I think what you just said is possible, and I think Indiana actually should take advantage of that. I mean, this game might be 80-77 and be one of the worst games we've ever seen. Nebraska's defense ranks dead last in the Big Ten in every category: in rushing defense, passing defense, scoring defense, total defense. Indiana's is 13th in total defense. It's 13th in scoring defense, and it's 13th in passing defense. So, dear God.
Something's got to give, man.
It's like the Deion Sanders quote after they beat some team like 61-14. We just wanted to make sure all the lights on the scoreboard worked. I think that could be a possibility in this game.
Dude, is that something that we want to see?
I'd say what I don't want to see.
Not if you're Indiana. I wouldn't think.
You don't want to see, for sure, and this isn't going to happen, God willing, 80-24 or whatever it was when they lost to Wisconsin umpteen years ago.
I
think it was 82-12. I wasn't on that.
Are you, Mitchell?
I was not there for that.
Was that Kevin Wilson's first season or the year before Kevin Wilson came on board?
The year before.
Okay.
That's not very close.
Bill Lynch.
Yeah, it's not very close.
I feel like it was like 10-7 in the second quarter of that game too.
83-20.
There you go.
For some reason, man, they just
can't stop laughing.
Wait, look at the second quarter. I thought it was like 10-7, like midway through the second quarter, or something ridiculous. Like they should not have scored 83 points. And then I swear we'll let Joe talk.
Yeah, so I'm pulling it up. I'm on their website. We're gonna get. It was 10-7 after the first quarter.
Okay.
Wow, there you go.
And then it was 38-10. And then
so Cincinnati was on pace for pulling a Wisconsin against Indiana.
Yeah, and then they lost in the second half, 45-10. So
there you go. Okay,
little
that
different.
Was back when old Bert was still coaching Wisconsin.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not very close.
Just a wee bit.
All right, now we'll let Joe talk. He's in
yeah.
Bloomington.
The law firm is going to take its time now. John, I need to chime in just because my crack research just set in my mind. You're talking about a rivalry between IU and Nebraska. It sets up really perfectly, actually. It's the battle of the opposite blue bloods. Nebraska 5 national football championships, Indiana 5 basketball championships. It's kind of perfect. So if you wanted to brand it, maybe throw it on a T-shirt or something, I think you can make some dollars off of that. I mean, I don't know. It's just Assembly Hall, Memorial Stadium. It's just you got to go both ways, though. So I don't know how you really set that up.
Here's the thing. Nebraska fans don't want this to be a rivalry because the moment this becomes real, they stay even more irrelevant than they already are. That's the problem on their end.
We are on a rocket ship. We're getting into Blue Reds. Why is that funny?
I just love the things we say on this stupid podcast.
11-1 college football playoff.
Why is that funny?
It's not funny. I'm sorry for laughing. Took it totally serious.
But I have said before, I do wish that the Chucky doll that Whop Fillier brought with him on the road when they played Nebraska, I wish that was the official trophy of this rivalry that we have created here.
How do you know it's not coming?
Imagine going over and opening them like a case that looks like a dollhouse and Chucky's inside.
That would be a lot.
Especially, you need to always play the game in October, like it's going to be October 1st. It's Halloween season at that point, and it's sort of justified.
Look at how excited he is talking with us.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this at all.
No, I mentioned it last year.
I'm a big fan. Anything we can do to get people excited about the Hoosiers, we got a rivalry game every game. If I need to say
the Big Ten already has the most rivalry trophies. Why not just create a rivalry trophy for every Big Ten matchup?
Do we really have the most?
I don't have this the factual stat in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's just something that's a known thing, right?
I feel like
in the bucket.
No, not Indiana. I'm talking about the Big Ten.
Oh, I got you. I thought you were talking about just Indiana.
I was going to say, I feel like Iowa has a trophy for every game they play.
Yeah.
Minnesota, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa State. That might be it.
And Indiana used to have a third. They used to have the bourbon barrel that they played against Kentucky for.
Bring it back.
That is the rivalry that needs to come back. Not right now. Not right now.
Okay.
Give them a couple years.
Can't wait for Mark Stoops to take another job somewhere else.
Yeah. We don't
How fun. Listen to, okay, this is my idea. This is my grand scheme. I think this would be a lot of fun. If we did week 0 or week 1, Friday night, Saturday night, Purdue, Louisville, Indiana, Kentucky, and you rotate them. So you'd play Indiana, Kentucky would play every other year. Purdue, Louisville would play every other year at Lucas Oil Stadium. You'd get all the fan bases in Indy. Those are 4 schools that are more of a basketball focus, but would generate some momentum for football season, I think. I've been thinking about that for years. I want to see it happen. It's never going to happen.
What would you call this? Obviously, it has similar setup to the Crossroads.
I don't know what you would call it.
And what you're thinking about, Indiana does play Louisville next year, starting of a 3-game series.
They should all play for some sort of alcoholic bucket or something of that nature. I think that would add to the level of intrigue. I don't know what I'd call it. The Who Grass.
The Who Grass. That's
pretty good, actually.
Battle.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, just for coming off the top of your head.
This is not just a hat rack, my friends.
Let's call up Kevin Warren. I'm sure he'd be 100% on board.
Mike Babinski and what's his name? Scott Dolson. I don't know who the ADs are for Louisville or Kentucky.
I know Louisville's got, Mitch Barnhart is Kentucky's athletic director, and Louisville is he's a new guy, Josh Hurd. That's his name. They've
there we go.
3 million athletic directors with all of the crap that they've dealt with over the past 10 years. But we're no longer even talking about Indiana, Nebraska. We're just,
What else is going on in the college football?
If you're watching the YouTube version, I don't know if this has been on the wall of Joe's room that he's in every episode, but I really love the McLovin thing that you have on the wall.
Yeah,
that's a new.
I figured I'd throw up decor. I've also got. I mean, I don't want to necessarily bring it up right now because Mitchell might get a little frustrated with you, but I got to play like a champion today sign right in front of my face up here. Just to remind me to wake up every day and do my best.
Is that a Notre Dame thing?
That thing is. Yeah, that sign is so sick. If I got mad at that, I would just.
Right.
Yeah.
Mitchell, I saw this today on Twitter and thought of you, and I want to read this.
Wow, that was a lot of talking at once.
Go, Joe, you go first.
I was just going to say that I think Notre Dame stole it from Oklahoma because that was like their thing before Notre Dame, and everyone kind of knows Notre Dame for it now, so that's kind of BS. a little bit, in my opinion, but it is what it is at this point. So
No,
I think Notre Dame does it better, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Most of the stuff about Notre Dame, I'm just jealous. That's where all my hate comes from. I would love Indiana to have tradition like that. We don't. So, it's a lot of jealousy. Was it? I don't think that's the quote. I'm going to totally butcher that quote, but it's flattery more than anything. I'm giving you a compliment by how sad I am that we aren't Notre Dame. Although I think Indiana would beat Notre Dame this year. Notre Dame stinks.
Hoosiers or Rudy? Better sports movie.
So, I met the real Rudy. Hoosiers.
I feel like there's another story hanging in the balance there.
I don't know.
Just waiting to be told. I've met Rudy. I'm going with Hoosiers.
Yeah, no, he's
funny enough.
Yeah, he did what he did, but
I didn't.
It's hard to beat Hoosiers, man.
It is.
It's hard to beat it.
I did not meet Bobby Plump, who was the guy who made the shot. So I did not meet the real guy from Hoosiers, but I did meet a guy from Hoosiers at a golf course one time. He was in the movie. I'm sorry. He played in the game, and he was telling me he attended the premiere of it. And at the end, everybody stood up and clapped and cheered. And he was pissed because he was on the losing side. I think it was the state championship game, but I can't remember for sure if it was the state championship or they got beat by him later. But he was like, we should have beat him. And he went into this like rant of just like his high school childhood and all this. Like he just couldn't get over this loss.
Yeah.
And that they made a movie about it.
50 years later, we should have beat them. Yeah. But Angelo Pizzo comes on all the time, doesn't he?
You cut off there while you said that.
Angelo Pizzo, he comes on Jim Show all the time, right?
He came on a few times last year. It's been a bit since he's been on, though.
Oh, okay. He's an awesome dude.
I got to get back to what I was saying before I forget, but I saw this on Twitter today, Mitchell, and I thought of you. I thought I would read it to you.
Oh, gosh.
Hurricanes rarely do what they're projected to. Sometimes they veer left, right, or even go straight. Then, sometimes they lose to Middle Tennessee State at home.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I mean, I was not in a good place. Both squads played at 3:30. Both were equally disappointing from the very beginning. I was actually on the golf course trying to watch the games. Couldn't even swing. I mean, it was just – I needed some time to recuperate. Miami was a million times worse than Indiana, by the way. I mean, they made Middle Tennessee State look like the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yes, they did.
Oh, I mean, they just played zero defense. I don't know. It was like they had no players on the field. It was routes on air. They had 90-yard touchdown, 85-yard touchdown, 70-yard pick six. Anytime Miami would go even get 3 first downs, they would punt it to them on the 10-yard line, and then it would be a 90-yard touchdown.
It was something to behold.
It was unbelievable. They got a long way to go as well, but their expectations are a little bit higher. I don't even know why their expectations are higher.
And they haven't been good in a long time.
Yeah.
It's the youth.
Do they still do the turnover chain, or was that a Manny Diaz thing?
They took it away. Yeah.
But, man, what an awesome idea that was. Absolute
inspired so many other turnover chain copycats.
Yeah, I mean, that was – I almost bought myself a turnover chain when they beat Notre Dame.
Oh, boy.
When Notre Dame went down to Miami and Miami beat the brakes off them, and they were turnover chaining all over that field, I almost invested in my own turnover chain.
That would have been awesome.
See, that's another thing, and we won't go deep into this because we don't have the time, but that's another thing that I can see that Rick Kazansky guy complaining about is coaches that endorse the turnover chain attitude because, man, it's just No, we're too good up here in Nebraska. We do things the old way. We run the triple option, and that's all we should ever do.
How slow do you think he walked out of the tunnel?
He probably didn't even. He probably took the elevator down from the press box and walked out onto the field.
Yeah, that's true. Like Tom Allen doesn't even really run that fast, does he? He just kind of jogs with the whole team.
Well, it's the fact that he goes out there, and this is for home games. He gets right in front of everybody. He does a little swaying thing, and he legitimately
Coach Wilson did too. Wilson did that same thing.
It's a stupid comment. He's not the only coach that does it.
Dabo Swinney runs 100 miles per hour down that hill.
I knew we were going there. I knew it.
He is hilarious when he runs down that hill.
Yep.
Hilarious. It could not be more about Dabo when he runs down.
It would be funny if Dabo leading the team caused a 120 player pile up by tripping, and they all.
No way he's tripping. He's got his knees up way too high to be tripping. He is driving them knees.
By the way, when you see Penn State, James Franklin is at the front, arm in arm with all those guys. Mel Tucker is usually at the front of the line. Jeff Brom is off to the side, but he's at the front. Literally, I don't know. Maybe Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day don't. I don't know. But I would venture to bet over 50% of college football head coaches run out first.
Yes.
They just don't have fun in Nebraska. Other than, and I don't get it. How could you be so miserable as a fan base for 5 years and you've still sold out every game?
Yeah. I mean, that's just – I thought I liked pain and sadness by cheering for sometimes the teams that I cheer for and just die every week for. That is a new level of misery that I have not unlocked yet.
Now, there's the two most miserable fan bases, and I'm not just talking about their success because one of these teams is doing way better at the moment in college football. One of them is Nebraska, and the other one is Tennessee. And there's two different kinds of miserable. Tennessee will scream at you. They don't care who you are. They will figure, let's just say you're getting in an argument with a Tennessee fan. They're the kind of people, and I'm not going to say any names, obviously, for two reasons. I don't know any. And another reason, if I did, and it happened to be somebody that I did know.
The number one reason.
Situation.
You didn't even have to give a number two. Just number one, I don't know any.
Number one,
I don't know any by name. I'm talking about people that you interact with online. That's what I should have said. But these are the kind of people that if you angered them, they would figure out your address and lace your mail or something like that.
Yep.
Yes. When Indiana, this is a fun story. I'm not going to get too many into details, but when Indiana played in Jacksonville and they were whooping up on Tennessee, I'm a little guy, but I have a big mouth. I was running that mouth, talking to everybody how terrible the Volunteers were. I think I had to be protected when Indiana started vomiting all over themselves and Volunteers started coming back.
Oh,
yeah, they're not to be messed with. I rattled it a little bit. They're not to be messed with. Tennessee fans are crazy. Nebraska fans are just sad. They're just miserable.
Yeah,
I think they just
two different kinds of miserable.
Yeah.
All right. We'll give our final thoughts on Indiana, Nebraska when we get to that game in Pick'ems. And speaking of Pick'ems, we'll go ahead and get into the rest of them. We got 7 games. Thankfully, only 7 games. We're officially going into conference play head first. Every team playing a conference game. Joe did the honor of counting up the standings for us this afternoon. So would you give us an update on where we stand after, what was it, week 4? Last week was week 4, yeah.
I think I did really
bad. We had a little bit of shakeup for the first time, really. Mitchell still holds a commanding lead, even after once again. That was the first time it's bit me in the butt. So I will say that was the one loss that he had that none of golly, hold on, let me talk.
None of you guys
picked Cincinnati, I think.
Yeah,
so,
not really.
anyways, yeah. Mitchell is at 37-10 in first. After him now is Dustin at 34-13.
Coming
After
for it.
Dustin is me at 32-13, and in last place this week is John the producer at 32-15. So we had a little bit of momentum. So Mitchell's still on the top, but now John on the bottom. So
I went from second to
Afraid.
fourth, I believe.
Yeah. Things are getting close, getting hot. I like
Let's
the
see.
slate here.
All right, let's dig into this week's round of pick'ems. First up, we have number 4 Michigan at Iowa. Michigan is an 11-point favorite. The over/under is 41.5. We'll go Dustin, Joe, Mitchell, and then myself.
So we're doing against the spread, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I think Michigan wins, but I think Iowa covers that spread. I think it's going to be something like 24-15 with Iowa gets 5 field goals or something like that. I think Iowa's defense is really good.
I think Michigan's offense is better, so I have Michigan covering the spread. I just see what is it? Blake Corum? He is ridiculous. I think he can run the ball on any team in the Big Ten. So look out for him. And unless JJ McCarthy has that young guy moment where he just can't handle Kinnick, I think they play really well and they cover.
Yeah, Michigan to cover. I think it's going to be like 31-7. Maybe.
Yeah, this is the game where I think we find out how good Michigan actually is. We thought they would blow out Maryland last week, and that ended up not being the case. I think
you know what we need. This is what we need as Hoosier fans. We need Michigan to win this game by 70.
So they come into Memorial Stadium next week.
They don't need any additional. Well, we need to fix this up. They're plenty good. We need them to win by 70. They don't need to be yelled at by the coaches. They don't need none of that. We need them to win by 70. Yes.
All right.
That's my thoughts.
Anyway, with that being said, I'm taking Michigan to cover as well. Moving on. Next up is Purdue at number 21, Minnesota. Minnesota 12-point favorite. Over/under is 52.
Teaser. I have a conspiracy theory on the Eyes on Big podcast, if you guys want to listen to that, about Purdue and the Aiden O'Connell situation. I think this game has been circled on Purdue's calendar for a long time because I think Jeff Brom hates losing to Minnesota. He's only beaten them once. Purdue's lost 8 of the last 9. They're a 12-point underdog, but college football is weird. I'm picking Purdue to upset Minnesota in Dinkytown.
We need an upset bell to go off when people. There we go. Mitchell, the upset bell.
Okay. I like that pick.
I like that too. I'm not going to go with you, but I like that. So I think Muhammad Ibrahim is an absolute stud, and Minnesota having him back is pretty huge. I love PJ Fleck as a head coach, and I think them playing at home, I think their fans are really underrated. There's going to be a lot of noise in that stadium, so give me the Gophers.
Mitchell, PJ Fleck hater.
He's just weird. He's not the guy that I like to be a little looser. He is about as tight as you can get. I like your Purdue pick. If Minnesota was ranked like 10 in the country or even better, then I think Purdue would win. Minnesota is not ranked high enough for Purdue to pull off one of those stupid wins that they have every year.
That's a good point. It's a fair point.
Minnesota is going to win fairly easily. I think it'll be a good game to watch. It'll be fairly close for most of the game, but I just don't think Purdue is going to be able to hold on. Minnesota is a wrecking ball.
Piggybacking off of that, I think along the lines of what you were saying, Minnesota still thinks they're being disrespected in the polls. They're going out there thinking that they still have something to prove to get that ranking up higher. I think they're to come in and do exactly what they need to do. I think they will win and cover the spread. So here's one thing to watch, because I did research, so I'm not letting this go to waste. Purdue has allowed just 1 rushing touchdown this season. Minnesota's pass defense is ranked best in the Big Ten. 3 touchdown passes to 4 interceptions. Minnesota's strength is running the ball. Purdue's strength is throwing the ball. Just something to keep an eye on. All right, continue.
Before we
Moving
move
on,
on,
we have.
I gotta clarify
go ahead,
something. So are we saying Minnesota to cover?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
I am.
I'm picking
I've
Purdue to
gotten
win.
points where I'm just
covers.
saying let's pick whoever to cover every time since we're doing that.
Gotcha. All right, what is the spread?
11 or 12? 12.
Yeah.
All right.
The Gophers.
All right, moving on. Wait, what did he say?
The Gophers.
The Gophers. The Golden Gophers of Minnesota. Moving on. Illinois at Wisconsin. Illinois hasn't lost since they beat Indiana. That's their only loss on the season. Playing against a reeling Wisconsin team. Wisconsin is a 7-point favorite with an over-under of 43.5. Dustin.
Brett Bielema goes back to Wisconsin. Look,
there you go.
Listen to this. I think, I don't know why I said listen to this. I don't have a great stat. That was just me wanting you to listen to my voice because I think I sound intelligent, apparently. If you go back and watch, I don't know. I have no idea why I said that. Go back and watch that Washington State game that Wisconsin played. That is a carbon copy of what Illinois wants to do. I think they want to beat up Wisconsin, and I think Wisconsin's offensive line is not as good as it usually is. Their defense has been sloppy. I think Illinois is rolling. Chase Brown is electrifying. I think Illinois goes in, and I think they get the upset. I'm going with another upset here. I'm picking the
Where's that Illinois upset bell? Mitchell. Yeah. Our unofficial upset bell. Joe.
Okay. After looking over my picks that I made for the week, I obviously I can't go back on it now, but in hindsight, I think the Illinois pick is a smart one. I think that Wisconsin is always tough to beat at home, and that's just I think I'm taking honestly the home crowds a little overboard this week. I'm riding those a little too hard, but I think that they feel really disrespected as a whole after that game at Ohio State. Ohio State kind of does that to everybody at some point during the year, so they can't really take that too personally. And maybe this week is a bounce back. So I'll go with the Badgers. Illinois, like you said, really good team, but I got to ride with Wisconsin this week.
I thought I'd be the only one that took the Illini for the upset. I'll be honest. This is the one that I was eyeing, like, ooh, I'm going to get them with this one. I think Illinois is awesome. I thought they were really good the first week of the season against Indiana. They made Indiana look – this is the second time I've used the word inept. So a little SAT prep for all you listeners. Made Indiana look inept. And I think there is a little ineptness on the Indiana front line anyways, but – I think they're really good at stopping the run. I think they've gotten a lot better. And Chase Brown didn't care. He was the only back. He ran the ball a million times, and he still was smashing people in the face. I think Chase Brown is sneaky one of the best players in the Big Ten. Very unheralded, but I'm happy that game's behind us. I think Illinois is going to win a lot of games this year, this one included.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think people thought that Indiana versus Illinois was a game of two programs that were, obviously of any major stature. Obviously, Illinois is still coming back from what they've dealt with over the past several years. But I think Indiana beat a really good Illinois team that a lot of people on week one, including us, thought was just like, okay, Indiana's got to get past this team to kind of have a chance this season. And while that is true, I don't think anybody really realized, and probably still don't realize, how good this Illinois team might actually be. And to be honest, they may be the second best team in the Western Division. We don't know that for sure, but as wide open as it is, outside of Minnesota, I don't know who else you could really argue to be the best team in that division right now other than Illinois. So following suit with Dustin and Mitchell, I'm taking the Illini to upset Wisconsin.
We weren't clever at all.
Gosh, well, that's it. I thought really. All right. Continue.
Moving on. Rutgers at number 3, Ohio State. OSU is a 40-point favorite with an over-under of 59.5.
The first couple weeks, people thought Ohio State's offense was broken. They scored 77 points against Toledo. They just scored 52 against Wisconsin, while Marvin Harrison Jr. was wearing Louis Vuitton cleats, and an Apple Watch. So I'm picking Ohio State to cover.
Man, the 40-point spread's a lot.
There's really not a lot to be said. I think if Rutgers starts reading the message boards and gets maybe a little bit of that, who was the guy? I can't remember what the guy's.
Oh yeah, the Church of Chop.
Yeah, Church of Chop. If they read those before the game, maybe they cover. But I don't know. I think they get smashed. I think CJ Stroud is starting to hit his stride this year, and that's just going to continue to roll. So I'll take the Buckeyes to cover.
Yeah, Ohio State's a problem. That's all I'm going to say. They're a problem. They're a problem for everybody. They're going to continue being a problem. I don't know when they play Indiana, but that's going to be a problem.
I agree that Ohio State's a problem, but you can still blow out Rutgers and not cover the spread. I think that will be the case. I think Ohio State wins, but doesn't cover.
Can I say that if I was Rutgers, if I was a defensive back, I would get called for pass interference or defensive holding every time.
A million times. Every
time. Make the officials call it. What else? What are you going
to
You're not going to win.
Do you remember Trey Waynes, Darqueze Nard, all those dudes? They would tell you, they would play straight man, press across the board, say, I'm going to get 2 or 3 pass interferences, but I'm going to hold you every play.
Yes.
And they were dynamic. They went to the college football playoff doing that nonsense.
They did. Alabama does it too.
Yes. I would, especially early, full tackles.
Yep.
You're gonna give up. Yes.
Horse collar.
But they're not going to do that in Ohio State. Problem.
Is that still a penalty? I feel like nobody gets called for horse collar anymore.
I don't know. It used to not be a college rule. But
that is a bad way to get tackled.
That's like the ultimate RKO type of tackle.
It's a bad deal. You're not breathing for a week. It's bad. That hurts for real. All those pads close you off. Not good.
Getting choked and then you're slammed to the ground. All right.
Yeah, right.
Moving forward, Northwestern at number 11, Penn State. Penn State is a 25.5-point favorite. Dustin.
Yeah, speaking of defense, this game interests me not because I think Northwestern is any good, but just because I want to see if Northwestern can score some points, because I think Penn State's defense is very feast or famine. They go for a lot of pass breakups. They get a lot, but you can also beat them deep occasionally. That's why Purdue had some success against them. That's why Ohio had some success against them. So I think Northwestern puts up some points in this game, but I still think Penn State covers because Northwestern's defense is god-awful.
Yeah, that's I'll go along with that. I think Penn State covers, but I think there's some good news for Northwestern football fans this week. Ryan Field is getting torn down, and they're getting a brand new stadium, so that might cheer them up a little bit after they get smacked around by Penn State. So keep that in your mind if you're a Northwestern fan, and just take that with this loss, and say that we might have a better spot to watch this football team be mediocre for the next 50 years or so. So that's the good news for the week for the Wildcats.
That is some solid news. I'd like to – Ryan Field has a certain vibe, though. I think it fits Northwestern.
Certain emptiness makes you feel empty inside.
Now, we can't be doing a lot of talking. Okay. I've played some games in Memorial
It's basically
Stadium.
an outdoor library.
I've played some games in Memorial Stadium early in the season when you get in there and there's maybe my mom in the stands. Maybe. She was at every game. So I'm very hesitant to call out opposing fan bases. I thought Ryan Field really – it helped Northwestern more than people will give it credit because it was very dreary. You went in there, like, when you go to Ohio State or Penn State, and I think even Indiana now to a certain degree, you get in there and it's like, wow, this place is unbelievable. You certainly do not feel that in Ryan Field. And it's a different kind of home field advantage. it's kind of funny, but I mean, we played at Northwestern. We were leaps and bounds better than that team, and we were down 21-0 before we realized the game was on. It's a different kind of home field advantage. I hope that they still have that, because it's I think one of the most unique atmospheres in college football. Not best, but unique. With all that being said, I think they lose by 6 points to Penn State. I think Penn State's running back is so good. I don't think maybe they get a little pass happy because they're winning and Northwestern's backdoor covers, but I think Penn State's running back is just getting bigger and stronger and better and more confident as he gets into the.
And that guy is a true freshman. He's going to be around for a long time before he can jump to the NFL. So.
2.5 more years.
Nick Singleton, name to watch in the Heisman race in the future, probably. Not this year, but in the future. I'm taking Penn State as well. I'm just going to leave it at that, since I just looked up at the clock earlier and realized we're already over an hour. So got a couple more games to finish up. Next up, Michigan State at Maryland. Maryland is an 8.5-point favorite. And what's crazy is I bet that would have been the opposite had Michigan State not gotten their ass beat last week.
Probably.
Which is interesting to think about. Dustin.
I like Maryland in this. I think they're a lot better on both sides of the ball than I thought coming into this season. Michigan State, I think, is a lot worse on both sides of the ball than I thought. So for that reason, I think Maryland covers. It potentially could get ugly.
Yeah, I said it a couple weeks ago. I deeply regret saying it because I think I might have put a curse on him. Mel Tucker is not living up to that contract whatsoever these past couple weeks. It's been bad. And Michigan State fans have had a lot to say about it online. So I think this week it gets worse. Maryland covers, and the Spartan fans are going to get pretty unhappy pretty quickly. So, look, I think this game could get really ugly.
What's the spread you said, 8.5?
Yep. And it's at Maryland, but Maryland doesn't have any fans. It's honestly might be worse than Ryan Field.
I was just about to say, this is one of the ones I'm more interested in when we talk fan bases, because there's some excitement for the Terrapins. They're explosive on offense. I think they fly around on defense. I'll be curious to see if they can get some people in that building, because that's a cool stadium. I don't know if you guys have been there. It's a really cool environment when there's nobody really there, but the build out.
Isn't it super really high on one side and really low on the other? Yeah.
No, it goes up kind of both sides, but it's really really low in one of the end zones. I think it's got some grass behind it, and then a really nice complex on one end zone as well. It's a cool little stadium. I actually think Michigan State is going to cover, but barely, like 7 or 8. I just think Michigan State's going to battle and try to hold the ball, and there's enough talent on Michigan State that maybe Tualia gets a little happy feet, but it'll be another really solid win as Maryland continues to march on to the upper echelons of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Sadly,
I think I have Maryland winning but not covering. So I guess that means Michigan State covers.
Yeah, I took Michigan
State. However you want to word that.
But
I agree with everything you said. I mean, I think it's not that Maryland isn't ready for the moment, but I don't think they're ready to blow them out. That's kind of the way that I feel about this Maryland team. So our game of the week, simply because I deemed it a rivalry game. And honestly, if you look at the spreads, it's the closest spread from what I'm looking at right now. So I guess it should be the game of the week. Indiana at Nebraska in the battle for Chucky the Doll or whatever else we want to name this game. Nebraska is a 4.5-point favorite. Over-under is 61. Dustin, what are your final thoughts and your score for this game?
I'd like to see Indiana get off to a fast start. Having said that, they haven't done it in 4 games yet, so I don't think that's going to happen in this game. You just have to limit the damage in the first half, make your halftime adjustments, and come out and play well in the second half, because Nebraska has proven time and again that they will let leads they'll squander leads. I think Indiana's going to be able to run the football in this game. I think they're going to be able to mix it up, run the ball, throw it around the field a little bit, maybe take a little bit of the pressure off Connor Bazelak. For the love of God, please get him some help. I don't care how many guys you got to rotate in there, but he cannot take the ass beating that he took last week where he got hit 13 times. That's uncalled for. Having said all that, I think Indiana does get the win. I think Nebraska will get a lead, squander it in the second half, and I had Indiana winning 33-30. So that's, I mean, obviously that's an Indiana cover because they're the underdog.
Just winning. Indiana winning's the cover. Yep.
Yeah. I've got a little bit of a different feeling. I think this game is deadlocked at half. I see it being really close in the first half. I don't know if I can really call it a trenches battle because I think that IU's offensive line is still going to struggle. I don't see it getting any better at this point. Maybe a little later in the season they'll clean it up just a bit, but on Saturday I don't see that happening. So I think it'd be like maybe 10-10, 14-14 at half, but then IU ends up pulling away in the second half. Still, it's going to be close till the fourth quarter, and then they finally pull away completely. So I went 31-24 IU, one-score game. I don't know. It's just I don't see this game being a high-scoring affair. As exciting as that might be, I just think it's going to be kind of a boring grudge match, and I think Indiana will pull away, though.
I agree that Indiana's offensive line is still going to struggle, but I think because both lines are so stinky, it'll be a pillow fight, and Bazelak will have more time. And I think Cam Camper is – if you can give Bazelak some time – I mean, there's some good receivers in the Big Ten. I'd have a hard time – you would have a hard time convincing me that anyone is that much better than him. He's super athletic. He makes catches look simple that aren't. I think Indiana puts him away pretty good. I'm debating 31 or 34-9. I don't think Nebraska scores any touchdowns. I'm going to go 34-9.
Mitchell, I'm kind of with you, but not as confident. I think if Indiana plays their full potential, they can absolutely blow Nebraska out of the water.
Yeah.
That being said, I don't think with what they have done so far this season that they're ready to blow anybody out, similar to what I was talking about with Maryland. However, they have proven that they've been able to win in close games. Obviously, Nebraska over the past 5 years has not been able to do that. I think Indiana is going to have a big lead in this game and nearly give it up. That's kind of the way I'm seeing this game going. I think Indiana wins 35-28.
Let's go, baby. We need a good
Before we wrap it up, Mitchell, what's our secret word or comment for those who listen and watch the whole thing?
Yeah,
did that last week.
I love seeing those tweets. That was awesome. Did you guys watch Jupiter? It was pretty cool.
I did. I went out. I remembered that.
Okay, awesome. I follow this guy that videos outer space and takes really cool images. Oh, it's crazy. Crazy stuff. Did you see – we have to be really quick. So is it a sign or not that we are testing probes that can go and hit asteroids 7 million miles away?
Yeah,
is that a sign that there's an asteroid headed directly for Earth right now?
I didn't think about that. What are the odds? Because obviously they did that as a test, but why would you do that as a test unless you had a reason to think that something was heading toward Earth?
It's 7 million miles away. They had to go get this thing. I'm sure there's a rock that could have got it a little closer.
Because why inform the public? We're not going to get into this. We're going to go and play the outro music, Joe.
I'm not a conspiracy guy, but it feels a little don't look up-ish if you watch that on Netflix. Like they're telling us there's an asteroid coming.
And now they're cutting Mitchell's sound out. Now they're catching Mitchell's sound out.
It's the aliens.
It's a conspiracy.
I'm telling you. They can hear me. I got to turn off. It's coming. It's coming.
There you go. If you're listening, if you hear the whole show, it's coming. Just comment, it's coming. So thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back next week to talk about the aftermath of Indiana, Nebraska, and looking forward to homecoming. Indiana takes on Michigan next week. So again, for Dustin Schutte, Joe, the law firm Lincoln, Mitchell Page, This has been This Week in Indiana Football. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Dustin, you coming to caddy for me?